Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night. United States of America launched another global hawk above the Black Sea, and they started and launched another reconnaissance operation. As you can see, according to the way and direction of the flight of that drone, we see that the United States of America were making some reconnaissance operation of the south of Russian Federation, of south of Crimea, and probably of the area in the vicinity of Rostov-on-Don. A few hours later, we got first updates from the Russians. They published the videos and photos of the crash of another drone in front of Rostov-on-Don, in front of the main Russian headquarters. On this video, we see just the results of the crash, and nobody was wounded. There were no casualties among civilians, but probably the Ukrainians were planning to do something. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation haven't provided us any details or updates regarding that attack, so today I understand we're going to see more updates about this situation. Now we are moving to the ground and we're going to discuss the situation. And first we're going to start with Piatykhatky, with this settlement. As you can see, I have updated the map, and currently, according to the geolocated videos we received, this settlement is under complete Ukrainian control. For example, today the Russians published another video how they managed to track and to discover the Ukrainian ammo depot on the eastern part of that settlement. And after correction and location, the Russians destroyed that ammo depot. And if we will try to analyze the updates that we received from that settlement, we see that, for example, starting the previous week, there were at least three video confirmed areas of Ukrainian presence in these settlements. So basically that means that the Ukrainians have strong positions in that settlement, and that was the reason why I have updated this map according to that this area is under Ukrainian control. Now we're moving further and we're getting to the Bradley Square, to Orehov Bridgehead, and today we got just two videos from this area. The Ukrainians haven't relaunched their offensive operation because of very bad weather that took place during the previous few days. The only thing we got is that, if you remember, during the previous offensive operation, the Ukrainians managed to land here a lot of infantry, a lot of soldiers, lots of troopers, and so on. We remember that most of the Ukrainian armored vehicles were destroyed under the Russian fire, but most of the troopers were able to land and to capture the Russian trenches between Robotyne and Verbovo. So there are a lot of Ukrainian soldiers, but there are almost no armored vehicles because all of them were destroyed. And this is the very big problem either for the Russians or from the Ukrainians. First thing is that the Russians know exactly that there are a lot of Ukrainians who are digging in deeper every single day, every single minute. And somehow to slow down the Ukrainians, the Russians try to bomb and shell their possible position in this area. The Russians make some reconnaissance operation with drones, and as soon as they discover this or that position, they start bombing and shelling. Of course, this tactic increased the Ukrainian losses on this bridgehead, and for these purposes they need to always to implement and to make some evacuation operation. And for example, of course, evacuation the Ukrainians can do just during the night period of time. On this video we see how the Ukrainians were trying to send some Bradleys to this area for evacuation purposes, but the Russians managed to track, discover, and then they managed to destroy that Bradley. So the situation is very difficult, and we see that the Ukrainians still controls the fields between Verbovo and Robotyne. The Russians tried to make intelligence operation and then to suppress the Ukrainian positions with artillery firing. The Ukrainians tried to make evacuation during the night, and the Russians tried to track and destroy the evacuation machines during the same period of time. So anyway, that means that within the next few days, as soon as the Ukrainians are able to dig in deeper, they will restart their offensive operation. And as we discussed, currently the Ukrainians have some operational benefits. They have operational square, and they can attack in any single direction from this salient in direction of Robotyne, Novomykhailivka, and Verbovo. And the Russians need to stretch their forces to be ready to meet attack in every single direction on this bridgehead. Now we're moving further and we're getting to Staromaiorske. A lot of very interesting updates we got from this settlement during the night. The Russians published just a video of, this is an old episode of clashes for that settlement. On this video we see how a few days ago the Ukrainians were entering this settlement. There was some kind of probable evacuation operation. We see how the Ukrainians landed packed in that armored vehicle, and then they were trying to evacuate, and the Russians started bombing and shelling this area, and after a few seconds that armored vehicle got on mine and was destroyed. So this is like the very old episode of Battle of Staromaiorske. After that, we got updates that Ukrainians established control over the settlement. So let's increase the number of updates. Yes, we see that there is a lot of updates, a lot of attacks from the Ukrainian side. As a result of those attacks, the Ukrainians managed to establish control over the settlement. The Russians launched their counter-offensive operation, but the most important thing is that the Russians launched their counter-offensive operation just in Telegram chats. We haven't received any video or photo confirmations of those attacks. Also, the Russians in Telegram chats reported that they managed to force the Ukrainians to step back from that settlement. Also from the Telegram text messages we got that the Russians managed to destroy a significant number of Ukrainians during the Battle of Staromaiorske, and today we got report from the Russian side that the Ukrainians have almost reached the vicinity of Zavitne Bajanya. So very interesting updates, very interesting development of the situation. During the previous days we got updates that the Russians have almost not just destroyed and ruined the Ukrainian forces in Staromaiorske, but probably counter-attack in direction of Velika Novoselyovka because there was so many success. And today we see that the Russians are retreating in direction of Zavitne Bajanya. Very interesting situation, which means that we need to base our logic, base our conclusions just on geolocated videos and just from the real materials, but not from the messages in the chats and Telegram channels and in anywhere else. Just geolocated videos. This is the only reasonable, the only right, correct way to understand the situation on the ground or in this on that settlement. I'm not saying that the Russians are stepping back. Probably this is another, I don't know, speculation or something like this. We need more geolocations, need more video to understand. But one more time, the freshest, probably the latest update we got is that Ukrainians, starting this morning on the 31st of July, are trying to penetrate the Russians' defense belt and to develop their offensive operation, the settlement by the name of Zavitne Bajanya. And this is a very critical operation for the Russians because in this case the settlement by the name of Orozhaina will be encircled and the Russian soldiers who are currently located there will appear in cauldron. And now we are moving further to Marinka and South Donetsk area. The Russians published, after a small operational pause, the Russians published the first video of the second video from Novomykhailivka. On this video we see how the Russians were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions along this forest line that connects the main trenches on the north of that settlement with that settlement. Probably the Russians managed to destroy some warehouse or small operational ammo depot. A week ago we got the same video from the same area, but this is not the same video. This is not from another angle. We just see that the Russians discovered and tracked the Ukrainian positions in this area and currently try to destroy the Ukrainians in this area and to probably to get more possibilities for the Russian infantry in the north to counterattack in direction of these fortifications. So we'll see, because this intensifying of bombing the settlement can mean just one thing, that soon the Russians will make another attempt to attack in direction of Novomykhailivka from the north. Now we're moving to Krasnogorovka, another probably the most interesting part of the Marinka bridgehead. As you can see, even from this perspective, we see that the Russians stuck in Marinka. Currently they can't find a solution how to penetrate this defense belt, and not because of it's impossible, because of there are no fortifications. So most of the fortifications were destroyed by the Russian army during the clearing operation of the eastern, the central part of that settlement. And now it's very difficult to develop offensive further, and the only solution the Russians have is to try to attack on the flanks. So we just discussed the southern Marinka flank operation. Now we're going to move to the northern Marinka flank operation. Today the Russians published the video how they managed to track and discover the Ukrainian artillery position. And the most interesting that there was a report, there was like a small video from the Ukrainian reporter about the situation in Krasnogorovka, and basically the Ukrainian reporter discovered and shown the Russians the Ukrainian positions in this area. The Russians used that video for geolocations. They geolocated and destroyed the Ukrainian 105mm artillery position that the Ukrainians were using to attack and suppress the Russian offensive operation, of course, in the vicinity of coal mine and in the vicinity of the northern part of Marinka. Anyway, one more time, if we will increase the data from this bridgehead, we see that the Russians are pretty focused in this area. During the previous week, the Russians destroyed a lot of tow positions and tank positions, anti-tank weapon positions, a lot of artillery systems, and just the Russians were trying to suppress and destroy the Ukrainian infantry. From the Ukrainian side, we haven't received any reports, we haven't received many updates about counterattacking the Russian forces in this area. Now we are moving further. We are going to get to Klishchiivka bridgehead. Today we got just 2 videos from this area. The Russians destroyed another Polish artillery system crap on the western part of Kurdyumovka. The Ukrainians were using this artillery system to attack and suppress Russian forces, of course, in Andreevka, the most important probably area these days, this minutes on this bridgehead, and probably the Ukrainians were using this system also to attack the Russian forces in Kodyma, in Travnevo, Zaitsevo, and so on. Also, the Russians published the video how they attack and bomb the Ukrainian position in Ivanovskaya, the settlement that located right in front of Bakhmut, right in front of Artyomovsk. On this video we see how the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian positions, and after a small reconnaissance operation, the Russians recognized and destroyed the Ukrainian forces in that area. If we increase the number of updates from this week, we see that the Russians are pretty focused in the central part of this area, but not so much as the Ukrainians on the southern flank of Artyomovsk. Now we also got very interesting video from Klishchiivka, from the Russian Ka-52 squad helicopters. I wanted to show this video in the previous episode, in the previous video, but I missed that video, so I believe we can watch this video today. According to the author of this video, this episode took place, all these episodes took place in the vicinity of Klishchiivka. The Russians Ka-helicopter squad is destroying currently lots of armored vehicles in the Ukrainian on this front line, and will continue to do this in the future. Yet probably since the beginning of Ukrainian counter-offensive operation, we received just one update that Ukrainians managed to shut down one Ka-52, but yet we haven't received any video confirmation of that. I believe Zelensky, after he visited Chasov Yar, left that territory. Now we are moving to the north and we're going to discuss the Bilohorivka area. From the Russian side, there was a video showing that the Russians were continue bombing and shelling positions of 81st Air Mobile Brigade in that settlement. This is the main forces, and of course in connection with 54th Mechanized Brigade of Ukrainian forces, who are successfully repelling the Russian offensive attacks in this area. Also, we got another geolocated photo from this sector. This is Ukrainian soldier in just a small shirts, almost with naked body, and RPG was trying to attack the Russian positions in the industrial area to the east of his position. So this is the Ukrainian soldier was located in this area, and basically the Ukrainian soldier was attacking these Russian positions. So as you can see, the geolocation of this bridgehead is correct. This small industrial area is split in 2 parts. The main part is under Ukrainian control, and the Russians controls just these 3 buildings in this area. Now we are moving further to Kupiansk Liman frontline. We haven't received any updates from this territory. Just the blogger Riber, military expert Russian Riber, reported that the Russians continue developing and maintaining their bridgehead and their corridors in the vicinity of Karamzinovka bridgehead, let's call it like this. And we got another video from the Russian sources how the Russians brought their artillery systems, their multi-rocket launch systems to the combat line, and probably a flamethrower system. This is flamethrower system, and after that they launched attack against Ukrainian positions, and in a second we're going to see the forest that was under attack of Russian flamethrower systems. According to the author of this video, this event took place on the 27th of July, but if we increase the number of updates, we see that there were a lot of updates of artillery strikes exactly in this triangle. I will add this area to the map. So I'm talking about these forests that were got during the previous days. So as I understand, maybe not the entire area of this bridgehead was captured by the Russians. Currently, the Russians try to clear this area to force the Ukrainians to step back and to establish normal fortifications, and after that they will continue their offensive operation in the western direction. We haven't received any updates from the Kupiansk, and we just got 2 updates from the Kharkiv front line, from the Kharkiv area. The first thing is that the Russians during the previous night made another massive Iskander strike against the Ukrainian positions in Kharkiv, and the sources later reported that the Russians were bombing and attacking the Kharkiv International Airport, and as a result of those attacks there were losses. There were like a lot of ambulance. There was probably the Ukrainians, the Russians destroyed the Ukrainian ammo depots that were located in the vicinity of Kharkiv airport and so on. And we got another video from the border how the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian positions, and after that they destroyed that positions with artillery fire. So nothing special, just regular artillery duels on between Belgorod and Kharkiv area. Another important updates are coming from the ground regarding the redeployment of the forces. According to the Western deployment map, we see that probably one of the latest forces of Ukrainian strategical reserves were redeployed to Ugledar direction. I'm talking about 38th Marine Brigade, and currently on the Vremivka tactical bridgehead South Donetsk are concentrated with the most powerful and main Ukrainian Marine brigades. There are 35th Marine Brigade, 37th Marine Brigade, and 38th Marine Brigade. 36th Marine Brigade is located also the same area, 36th, 35th, 37th, and 38th Marine Brigade, and currently their task is to penetrate the Russians' defense belt and to get as close as possible to Mariupol. A few days ago, if you remember, there were updates that Ukrainians have redeployed the forces of 41st Mechanized Brigade, 43rd Mechanized Brigade to the Kupiansk front lines. Yes, so also more updates are coming from Wagner. So we got that currently the Belarusian forces, Belarusian Ministry of Defense of Belarus, started trainings of another mechanized brigade of Belarusian forces with Wagner's. Most of the trainings are taking part in the Brest region, in the area of possible combats with Ukrainian forces and probably Polish forces. So another Belarusian mechanized brigade started trainings with Wagner. So they're training for something, of course, and of course this will increase the level of Belarusian forces, of their military education, and their possibilities during possible upcoming offensive or any combat operations in this area. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.